Hello everyone. Hi. I feel like I never know how to greet you guys ever. I just say like hi and continue and pretend that it didn't happen, but this time I feel like I should be assertive in that sense. I don't know. For today's video, I'm going to be flipping some thrifts. I actually filmed this around a month ago, almost 2 months ago, but I was just overtaken by this immense amount of existential dread. I'm not particularly over that now, but you know, I'm over it enough to be filming this video, so here I am today, doing that for you. Let's flip some clothes. The first item of clothing that we're going to be flipping today is this gorgeous cashmere cardigan. Oh my gosh, I saw this on the rack and I was like so on the fence about it just because it was such a long cardigan. I had no idea if I could actually crop knitwear, but I just took a chance, bought it, here we are now. And oh, I also forgot to mention that this thrift flip was kind of Urban Outfitters inspired and Reformation inspired, but I've been seeing a big trend in like cropped little cardigans and they're kind of in matching sets. Okay, so with this piece, I actually wanted to crop it, which I have done so much research on if you can even cut knitwear or cashmere. So I'm kind of scared because for the most part the answers have been no, but I heard that if you overlock the bottom and hem it, it should be okay. But I am also not a knitwear professional, nor am I a seamstress, so it's all just a matter of luck at this point. So yeah, let's get cropping, I guess. I'm so scared. So in this part, I just took a pair of fabric scissors and just hacked off the bottom. I really just went for it. I don't know if you can tell because it's time-lapsed, but I was really hesitant on cutting it. I was just so nervous that I was just gonna ruin the entire thing, but I guess you'll see at the end how it turned out. I'm sorry, excuse this background situation. I'm redoing my room and there will be a whole separate video on that, but this is looking pretty good so far though. After cutting it, I decided to finish off the bottom just so that it wouldn't unravel or anything, and this part was so painful. I just overlocked this entire raw hem situation and it really sucks to do it on knitwear. I don't think it really matters just because I will be rolling it over to form a hem. Honestly, if I were to suggest, you know, cropping your cardigans or whatever it may be, just hem it. I wouldn't suggest like doing a regular fold over hem just because it does have a chance of unwinding and the knit would just fall apart, but you also don't really have to overlock it. I think doing a rolled hem would secure it just fine and it won't undo itself, but now that this is done, I am just going to tie the ending knots and pin the new hem and sew it, and hopefully it'll turn out okay. So yeah. I know that just from the copious amounts of like sewing videos that I've watched in general, that a lot of people just roll their hems and like wing it when they're sewing, but I just can't commit to that. That just scares me. So I actually pin my hems always just because I'm so scared that I'm going to like screw it up under the sewing machine and like I would have to redo it. It would be a much longer process and I'd rather just pin it all. So that is what I'm doing in this clip. And then I changed my sewing machine settings so that it was a straight stitch instead of the zigzag stitch that I was using to finish the cropped hem. So at this point, I just sewed down what I had pinned and the hem was just laid in place. And honestly, that was it. That's all it took. Yeah, you can really see how uneven it is at the bottom when I button it up. I can just pull it down a little bit. Alright, that's enough of me trying to convince myself that this looks good. Cue the modeling clips. On to the next item, and this, oh boy. I saw this shirt in the thrift store and I was immediately attracted to the fabric and the color. I thought that the apple green color was really pretty, and I also see it a lot on my Instagram ads. And I actually saw a top from Reformation that was very similar to the silhouette that I was trying to achieve. I guess the first step when sort of making this top was assessing the fabric because there was just so much of it. The wingspan of this shirt is so long that it almost nearly reaches my wrist. When I was trying this on, it was so huge. I literally looked like a Roblox character. Okay, so the awesome thing about thrifting, you can just take advantage of the pre-existing sleeves. Since these sleeves are already so big to begin with because the shirt was so freaking large, I can easily just add elastic to this bottom section and then add elastic to the top section, and bam! I got myself a ruffled sleeve. Since there isn't a hem on the top part since I sliced it off, I'm going to have to hem it and then make a channel. But the reason why I want to make a channel for the elastic instead of rolling over the hem and just sticking the elastic through it is because the whole sleeve attachment process will be a lot easier if I just put a channel through it, and I have literally been losing sleep over attaching sleeves. That stresses me out so much. And then I will assess the fabric that we already have and see which fabric I can use to make channels for the elastic. So yeah, let's just get into that. I have now officially cut out the back panel, and this is a solid square yard of fabric. I was actually trying to figure out which direction I wanted the plaid print to be in. I thought that this kind of made me look a little bit wider just because these darker stripes kind of have a widening effect, if that makes sense, and I feel like if they're more vertical, it looks, I don't know, less wide. And it's really convenient because this fabric is made up of straight lines pretty much, so I can just cut along the lines. So let's just do that. So when cutting the shirt, I laid out my fabric flat on the floor and cut off any curves or potential odd shapes to make it easier to work with. Then I cut it straight down the middle to yield what is essentially 2 wide strips of fabric. I feel like I didn't explain this well enough while I was filming, but basically what I wanted to do with these strips of fabric was to lay them right sides together and sew along the 2 ends so that it becomes what is essentially a huge fabric tube. But if you're doing this with your own fabric from scratch, not that I'm giving much of an insightful tutorial, but you'd probably need a length of fabric that is 1.5 times the size of your bust. So after I was finished sewing the sides, I created a rolled hem so that our fabric tube was all nice and ready to go. Verbally explaining what I'm doing is so difficult because the majority of the time when I'm executing these kinds of projects, I see it all laid out in my head like an easy visual IKEA manual, although that's a bit of an oxymoron, but you know what I mean. Anyways, in this next clip, I cut out strips of fabric from what I had left over from my shirt and did a simple hem so that it wouldn't fray. These strips will actually be sewn on the inside so that the elastic can go through the tube of fabric like a sort of scrunchy situation. Normally, this could either be done with a proper inside lining or just some shirring, but seeing that I don't own an excess amount of fabric to line the inside of the top, nor do I have elastic thread to shirr, these strips will just have to do for now. And then honestly, it was sort of a rinse and repeat process with each section that I was adding elastic to, but with the middle and the bottom elastic, I made sure to mark it with a safety pin so that I actually had a reference of where I should actually put the fabric strip. This is like going oddly right for me, which is not a normal thing that happens. Excluding all of the tops that I've cropped, this is probably like my second legitimate sewing project. So this is kind of a big deal for me. And so with that, our fabric tube is pretty much done. All you really had to do was just make a tube of fabric, sew a bunch of strips, and then thread elastic through them. And it was honestly not that difficult, considering that my sewing skills are lacking, to say the least. Since the shirt was so big and the sleeves were so huge, the hem spacing on the bottom, that hem was like an inch wide, and because of that, instead of making another strip of fabric to sew along the inside and like try to freaking stick the elastic through it, all I had to do was just sew a line straight down the hem so that there's sort of a tube of where I can stick the elastic in instead of making an entirely new scrap strip of fabric to sew along the inside because it's already pre-existing within the shirt. And then for the top part of the sleeves where it met my shoulders, I obviously didn't have a hem to work with because I hacked it off with a seam ripper from the original shirt, so there was just a raw hem. So I kind of just did the same process that I did with the main tube of fabric, which was to make a rolled hem and then sew a scrap strip of fabric on the inside. And since sleeves are in a more curved shape, it obviously couldn't go around the curvature of like the sleeve because it's just a straight strip of fabric. So what I did was I folded it over a little bit and created tiny little pleats so that it could actually curve around the shape of the sleeve. I sewed the channel on the wrong side of the sleeve, which is technically the right side of the sleeve, but you know what I mean. I messed this up. I sewed it on the wrong side, and I didn't realize that. I also just realized that I hemmed it on the wrong side. I am going to have to... It was going too well for too long, and something needed to go wrong. Also, I just took a shower, so my hair isn't greasy, it's just wet. Okay, that's all for this update. I'm going to seam rip this all and I will be right back. For the elastic portion, I took a strip of elastic and measured it on my sleeve. Top tip though, when you are putting in elastic, make sure that you have a little bit of extra elastic, because what you can do is safety pin it so that it is a certain length that you want it to be, but if it's too tight or too loose, you can always adjust it while you're trying it on. Do that before sewing your elastic down and before like permanently cutting your elastic and regretting it because it was too short. Always have extra elastic just in case it's gonna like cut off your circulation or something. And then the next part was attaching the actual sleeves to the tube. I have the sleeve pinned over here, and to be quite honest, it's not that difficult. It's more so just a tedious process. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. Kind of. As you guys can see, I have pinned the sleeves right and wrong sides together. Basically, I intentionally made this flap before making the channel of the elastic, if that makes sense, so that I can sew these two parts together without affecting the elastic so that I can move freely within the channel. Pinned the flaps together. It looks really messy on the inside, but we're just gonna ignore that. And I stretched it out so that it aligns pretty much perfectly. I stretch it out and put it through the sewing machine, and that is what I will be doing. So I will be right back once I'm finished sewing to show you the final product. And for this last and final flip, I'm actually going to be doing it right now because I originally chose a different piece to flip, but then I realized that I liked it as it was. So I'm actually going to be taking this other item of clothing. It's a thrifted sweater vest. Sweater vests have been kind of trending. I am literally wearing one right now. I love sweater vests. I'm kind of hopping on the train. They spark so much joy inside of me for some weird reason. But yeah, I've seen on Urban Outfitters that they do sell sweater vests, and even on like the cool Depop shops, I feel like those are kind of trending. So I wanted to take this sweater vest and crop it, which is ironic because literally the whole beginning of this video was me spending so much time cropping knitwear. I really needed a break from how long that puff sleeve top was taking me, and I feel like cropping something just gives me a sense of relief and accomplishment. So here we are doing that. And what I actually meant by now was a day later after filming, because the sun was setting and the lighting was getting all weird. So here we are now, and I am filming this part. So we're just gonna have to try this on and I will explain to you what I'm doing. So yeah, let's freaking go do that, I guess. Alrighty-o. This is a bit long, as you guys can tell. So what I'm actually going to do is take a pin and mark where I want it to be cropped so that I could actually bring this bottom hem and like so, sew on the inside here, and then cut all this excess off. Out of all the thrift flipping that I did in this video, this one was probably the easiest one. I didn't even measure, I didn't use a measuring tape or anything. I just folded it inside out like halfway and then just marked where I wanted the bottom hem to be and pinned where I wanted to sew where the bottom hem and the rest of the sweater vest would meet. And then I just stuck it through the sewing machine. Shout out to that Lemona box that's on my desk with that picture of Jungkook. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I just did a whole round of sewing around the entire circumference, and I once again just hacked off the excess And that was pretty much it for this sweater vest.
Jane, standing over in a nightgown. She's got the phone cord twisted around her finger. She's a sight to see.
Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really enjoyed making it. I love sewing. I feel like that's not something I'm very outspoken about on my YouTube channel, but I freaking love sewing. As for the comment of the week, here she is. Once again, I love when you guys comment on my videos, and I want you guys to keep them coming so I can feature them at the end of my videos. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so freaking much. Thank you for keeping up with my delusion, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.